Tigerland Properties. These are licensed professional realtors in Louisiana, commercial, residential, investments, whatever you choose to do. These people, whether you're buying, whether you're selling, whether you want to invest, these people are the best in the business. They really are. Tigerland Properties. Mainly, they work in the Boot area of Louisiana, down in South Louisiana, but truly, you could not be in better hands if you're buying or selling commercial, residential, or investing than Tigerland Properties. I encourage you to call them 225-320-3004. You'll want to make sure you're in good hands with commercial, residential, real estate, or investment, and they are the best.
When we hear someone's name, especially in public life, we often think we know who they are. We know the headlines, the positions, the public conversations, but every person has a story that goes much deeper. Today, we're going to be setting politics aside and getting to know the man behind the mission, the experiences, the faith, the family, and the values that shaped John Fleming into the person he is today. And I'm really looking forward to that conversation where we do set politics aside. Welcome to For the Love of Freedom. Today is Wednesday, June 23rd. 2026. It's 10 a.m. Central, and I'm coming to you live on Voice of the People USA TV and radio network on Rumble, X, YouTube, and Facebook. Wherever you're watching or listening, please like it, share it with your friends, leave us comments, send us stars if you can't catch us live. You can always catch us on our audio-only platforms later the same day. And just a note, we're also now on Substack, and there's fresh content over there that you can't get anywhere else. So please take a look and subscribe. You can also support us by joining the Warrior Circle there or at freedomstate.us. Well, I'm your host, Danielle Walker, and on this show, we meet people who have rejected the status quo, people who've broken with convention and have broken with the belief that the TV or the textbooks tell them the truth. And each of my guests, in their own way, are working to bring freedom to the world. Let me bring John forward. Let's see. Good morning, John. How you doing?
Good morning, Danielle. Doing great.
Awesome. Well, it's a pleasure to have you back with me, and I know you are looking forward to being in the final stretch with your campaign. Hopefully, at least the final big stretch for a little bit here on Saturday. Before we get into it, let me read a scripture of the day and just kind of set the tone for our conversation. But I'm really looking forward to this. It is today's scripture is Hebrews chapter 4, verses 14 through 16. And it says, "So then we must cling in faith to all we know to be true, for we have a magnificent king priest, Jesus Christ, the Son of God, who rose in the heavenly realm for us and now sympathizes with us in our frailty. He understands humanity, for as a man, our magnificent king priest was tempted in every way just as we are and conquered sin. So now we come freely and boldly to where love is enthroned to receive mercy's kiss and discover the grace we urgently need to strengthen us in our time of weakness." And, the Lord sees us in our humanity, and he doesn't define us by our profession or our social rank, and he sees us as children. He knows our weaknesses, our strengths, our desires, and he's the one who gives us the strength we need when we're running out of gas and when we need his mercy and his help. He knows that we're not perfect and that we're incapable of fulfilling the purpose and the destiny he has for us in our own strength. So we need him. And I just wanted that scripture to kind of frame out how we have our discussion this morning, because, I know that you have had your political hat on. You have had this race that you've been running, And and I know it's been tough on you, it's been tough on your family, and you have really been out there talking a lot about the issues. But today we want to talk about the man. And I know you have mentioned when we've spoken before, on the record and off the record, that you've known the Lord for a very long time. I believe you said you came to know Jesus when you were 11, if memory serves.
Mhm.
And do you want to just talk for a minute about, he's obviously brought you through some very tough times that we've talked about. Um, how have you seen his strength lift you up in the last couple of months? Because I think that's probably been in a time where you can grind it out and you can put on your bootstrap, pick yourself up by your bootstraps and do that. But it's so much tougher to do it that way than if you are resting in the Lord and feel
Sure.
his encouragement and his strength.
Right. Well, let me go back a little bit before that, and I think it'll help give context to
Yeah.
where I'm at, where my walk is, really. So, as young as age 5, uh, for some reason, I really began to deal with the important issues of life after death,
Wow.
uh, questions about, where is heaven and who is God exactly, and what's the role of Jesus. And I remember I was driving my mother crazy, and finally she just walked over to the telephone and and dialed up our pastor, handed me the phone, and said, "You talk to him because there's any answers." Because I said, "Well, the Bible has all answers, right?" And I had a wonderful pastor who eventually, as I was older, baptized me. But he said, "John, we don't know everything. There's still many mysteries, but the Bible tells us everything we need to know."
Yeah.
So I take it upon faith. However, whatever happens to us after we leave this world, or when the rapture comes, those kind of things, we're not to worry about that. That we're reassured that as Christians, that we're in the arms of our Savior Jesus Christ, and that we should only worry about what that relationship is, and what that relationship is among other people who are around us, our friends, our family, and others. And that's the reason why we're to go out into the world and to testify for Him. So, anyway, as you say, when I reached age 11, it really was it's still strong on my mind. What was life after death, and what does it mean to be saved? And the guarantee in the Bible, both in the Old and the New Testament, is simply that accepting Him, accepting His grace, forgiving us of all sins. You can't get into heaven with sins.
Right.
You can only give, and you can't get through life without sinning. So that means that the only way you can get into heaven and have a wonderful life after death and to be with your loved ones is to have those sins forgiven. And only Jesus, the Son of God, can do that. So I was at a church service when I was 11, and I'd been thinking about it for several weeks. And finally, it's as though something took over my body. I don't know, but I began walking forward and accepted the altar call. And then, of course, I became baptized. So, and that's, of course, my faith been with me. I've never departed from that. So fast forward to today, and I've really been campaigning hard for 1.5 years,
Yeah.
and really had been campaigning for treasurer before that. So I've been almost continuously in campaign mode for 3 years, and it is hard on you. It's hard on your family. Um, it, it takes up a lot of your time. But the blessing in all this has been all the great relationships I've developed, the friendships and the trustships that I have, I think have thrust me forward in a place now where I've never seen the kind of support I'm getting in this campaign in any other campaign I've ever been involved in. I
Wow.
mean, people are deeply supporting me, emotionally invested in this campaign, And I mean, you know, I've won probably overall, I would say I've won 5 campaigns, and I could add all the support I received in all 5 of those, and it would not add up to what I'm seeing today. And so I'm very blessed by that. But win or lose, it's going to not matter in my life. If I win, then I'm going to go on and do my job as I know the Lord wants me to do it. And if I lose this race, I'll go on to something else. I'll be just as happy as I am today. It does not matter. It does not impact me. It does not make me think any less of myself. My family won't think any less of me, and my friends. We'll just be disappointed that we missed an opportunity to change things forever in Louisiana and maybe in the country when it comes to um, giving the choice to the people rather than to powerful people and powerful money. That's really what this election's all about. So for me personally, it does not matter at all what the outcome is. I'm going to be fine. My worry is about the future of this state, which I think has not been doing well. And I don't see a very good future for Louisiana unless we get better about our leadership. And I want to contribute to a better leadership in our state. We do have some good leaders, but we don't have enough who have the kind of power necessary to lead us forward. And again, I want to be in that lineup. The people who want to really improve this state and reform and innovate and bring us forward and make life better for the people of Louisiana. So again, for me, don't worry. Nobody should worry about you know what my future is. My future is guaranteed, and I have not a single worry about that,
I
Danielle.
love that. I love that. And I can see it in your demeanor. And I think you're right, John. I haven't seen a race that has really been quite so defining uh, and has kind of separated people in a way into camps. And and in some ways you might think that's unfortunate, but in a lot of ways it's a really useful thing to see what values are driving people and where they really stand on the issues that are defining our state right now, and the future of our state. So, it separate, the Lord said he came to bring a sword, and I feel like that's kind of a time that we are in, a moment we're in Louisiana, where we can see, those
Mhm.
who are on the side of the people and the Constitution and righteous governance, and those who, maybe have good intentions even, but are for whatever reason lining up with rhetoric, with money, with political establishment, and
Mhm.
that is not what we want. I mean, it's not what I want to take Louisiana forward into this next 6 years or more. I want to go back to what you said about this doesn't define you. And I love that because that's exactly where I was hoping we would. That's one thing I wanted us to hit on. I've been thinking a lot. We're in the 250th anniversary of our country. And it's got me thinking a lot about our founding fathers and the way that they lived their lives. And none of them were single note individuals, and I think that's something you touched on. If your identity, their identity was in Christ. Their identity was in driving a future that was built on freedom, that was built on the scripture, that was built on particularly the law as it was laid out as a structure in the book of Deuteronomy. And if your identity is in Christ and it's not in a job or a function or a title or a social rank, as I said at the outset, it frees you up. It frees you up a whole lot because you're able to pursue some desires and interests that you're not able to do if you're defined by Dr. John Fleming being the doctor, then maybe you would never have been able to go into business because
Mhm.
you would have said, "Well, I'm not staying in my lane." We hear that refrain a lot, "Stay in your lane," but maybe we have narrowed ourselves too much, and there's so much more that we can explore. I'd love to hear from you. I've heard the story about how you came to be a doctor, but I've never heard the story about how you became a businessman. And I was wondering if you have heard that voice in your ear, as so many of us have, saying, whenever we are interested in branching out into something new, well, you're a doctor. You don't have any business going into business. Like, what was the path to get you into business? And then why did you pick the line of business that you got involved in?
Sure. Well, it was an evolution of thinking over time. See, I remember I grew up. You've heard me say in a working class home. My dad worked all the time. He was always trying to keep up with his expenses and with bills. Um, he was originally a lineman for the power company. He fell from a pole and broke his back,
Wow.
and after recovery, he was given a desk job for the power company he worked for. And what he would do is in his off hours, he would work as an electrician or a TV repairman. Back in the 50s and 60s, they actually repaired TVs instead of throwing them away like we do
Right.
today. And he would oftentimes have me go with him, which I love to do because that's the only time I got to spend with him.
Mm,
We didn't get the recreational uh, dad and son time that a lot of me and my sons did, because he just didn't have that extra time. It was always work. So I'd help him carry TVs, and I'd help him pull air conditioners out of the window. And that was my ability to spend some time with him. But what I watched is he worked constantly. He worked all hours of the day and night. He
mm,
worked shifts. So he'd sleep in the daytime many times. And I just would say to myself, I just don't want that for my future. I want to be able to spend time with my family
yeah.
and with my children. And but my dad believed, because he grew up on a farm, that the harder you worked, the longer you worked, the better the outcome.
Yeah.
But then I had an uncle who owned some businesses, and he told me something totally different. And this is kind of goes back to, I don't know if you've heard of this book. It's well known, Rich Dad Poor Dad,
Yeah.
where this guy uh, has a father figure who's not his actual father. What he learned was that the way you manage your money and the way you manage your life can give you much better quality if you know how to use the economy to your favor. And so, what this uncle taught me, and he really wasn't trying to, but he would say things that really made me have a different viewpoint of life. Because, see, I was actually in that same kind of cycle. As a physician, I was actually a resident in family medicine. And all of us, of course, look for opportunities to moonlight, which means we'd work in an emergency room.
Yeah.
And in those days, it paid pretty good. It was $25 an hour, and that's tall cotton for a resident in training
Yeah.
back in those days. And so I found myself very much like my dad. Excuse me. I'd work during the day in my normal residency program, but then in the evening, I'd be working in the emergency room, sometimes all through the night. And then I would be exhausted the next day. And I would, and I felt like not only did I not feel good, I didn't get to spend time with my wife. And we had babies at that time. And I said, there's got to be a better way of life. So I was influenced by my uncle, who was a business owner. And he says, you know what? Uh, how much work I do physically and being present at the time does not in any way dictate or determine how much money I make. I can make more money and still spend plenty of time with my family, or I can make less money. It's really more up to how I manage my business and how I manage my personal economics. And so I said, well, I'd like to try that. I like that idea. Totally revolutionary to me.
Yeah.
But I had no background in business. I'd never even been in a business school. But I did calculate that the best way to learn was to get into franchising because I knew that if you opened a franchise, that they would teach you how to run the business, and that is true even today. And so I purchased the first Subway sandwich franchise in North Louisiana. That was a new company back then. We're talking about 1986. And over a couple of decades, we ended up opening 32 units that still operate today. And then that subsequently evolved into other types of franchise businesses and also real estate. And so what I was able to do is really find a whole new level of enjoyment in life in being able to produce good products and good services for people. And that was really very fulfilling to me. And at the same time, I could build a certain amount of wealth for my family that certainly I can make sure that they can go to the college of their choice, help them get into business for themselves. And however, it's one of those things where you're on a constant roller coaster. You
Yeah.
have good months and bad months. You have good years and bad years. And there have been times when I've lost plenty of money, and there's times when I've made plenty of money. But if you talk to an entrepreneur, you'll find out that that's really how it is. And you're never 100%. You never bat 1,000. You're lucky to bat 300. But what you want to do is emphasize and encourage and flourish those things that work and that are successful, and quickly close down what things are not successful. And so that's been very fulfilling career to me. But Danielle, I've learned so much from it that I've now applied to my government service, whether it was in Congress, whether it was in the Trump administration, and what I do now as treasurer. Just like Donald Trump, I'm constantly applying business principles that I've learned to governance. And that separates us from those who don't, because we know what the outcomes are. We know what works and we know what doesn't work. And so many times you have people who are lifetime politicians, and they live in kind of a dream world, an idealistic world, that if you spend more money on this, you're going to get great results. And
Right.
they really have no idea, because they've not sat in a position where every dollar you spend has an impact, either positive or negative. And you have to analyze that, you have to study it, you have to have the data, and you have to get friends and colleagues to look at it and give you feedback as well. So I think it's been very helpful to make me a better congressman, a better treasurer, and a better person in my life. But it was something that I took on as a risky thing. It is risky, and it's worked out well for me and my family.
How did you make that transition? So you talked about your uncle and kind of this mindset shift. Was it like a flip switch, like an aha moment, or did it take some time for you to kind of get over to a new mindset of, work more equals more versus work smarter equals more?
Right. No, it was a switch. It was like a eureka moment. It was like, I never looked at it that way. I always thought that to make more money, to have a nicer home, to have nicer cars, which, as a young adult and starting a young family, those are the kind of things you think about it. I mean, let's
Yeah,
admit it, we do. There's nothing wrong
100%.
with that, because as
Yeah.
Americans, we're always wanting to be upward mobile. If not, then uh, our country is going downhill. That's what drives this country. Is the fact that with our self interest, we're making our country and our economy even stronger. Otherwise, we wouldn't work, and we would be like Cuba, where nobody works and nothing gets
Right.
done. That's called socialism. So no, it was a eureka moment. I just went. I've never heard that. I've never thought of that. And that's why, again, I would encourage people who are interested in this subject to read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It really brings all of this out. This gentleman who's a successful businessman today, he learned from a father figure who was not his actual father, just like I did, and he learned how to bring a better economy for the country by owning businesses.
Cool. Very good. So a guest I've had on this show before, who's become a friend, her name's Julie Lavender. She wrote a book about overcoming fear because for years she's a very talented musician, but she lived for years with this like debilitating fear of public performance. And in her book, she talks about fear being one of the enemy's main tactics to keep us from our purpose, to keep us from our destiny. And she would say that he goes into that place where the Lord wants for us to succeed, and that's where he brings fear out. And I tend to agree with her because I have been very uncomfortable with public speaking. It's taken a lot for me to move into a place where I can feel pretty comfortable in that space, and there's some other things too. But it seems very much like for me right now, that's what the Lord's called me to do. It's exactly what would make me the most uncomfortable. So have you experienced something like that, a fear in a certain aspect of your life that you've had to kind of overcome to get into a position that the Lord wanted you to be in?
Oh, absolutely, Danielle. No question about it. Um, fear is an extension of anxiety. And people go, well, anxiety is bad and fear is bad. No, it's actually good because it's fear and anxiety that makes you really study and analyze what you're doing to be sure that you don't go off half cocked and not do a good job. So, again, investing in a business, if you don't have enough fear to look at, is this something really right for me? Is this something I need to really study? Maybe I should talk to more people. I should get more counsel for it. Let me go back and look at the figures. If you don't have that kind of fear, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. Now, the fear you're talking about, particularly like public speaking or public performance, it can be debilitating. But there are ways that you can deal with it, but you have to deal with it head on. You have to attack it head on. You have to be fearless in dealing with your fear. I've had in the past, not so much now, anxiety about public speaking, and you don't know how you're going to be received, and are you going to say things in just the right way. Um, a quick and I think funny story is. When I was 43, I started taking piano lessons. I'd never touched a piano short of moving one until I was 43. I actually ended up taking piano for 14 years and
Wow.
ended up doing recitals. I even played sometimes at church. I loved still love classical music. But at one of the recitals, which is mostly children playing piano, and I'm the only adult, but I had two pieces and I had memorized both. And I sat down to do one of them and I could not remember the first note. I could not, I was
Just
frozen.
blank.
I was total blank sitting
Yeah.
there at the piano. And, and I didn't play the piece because I could not remember the first note. Why? Because you see, that fear had swelled up inside of me and it stopped my brain thinking. And of course, soon after that, I was able to do it just fine. I'd done it many times before practicing.
Yeah.
I did play a second piece, which I did remember without any problem. But I've had things like that to happen. These things do happen, but you shouldn't be so invested in yourself to believe that it matters much that you make a mistake or that you
Mm,
do something like that. I was totally embarrassed, but I said, look, you asked for this. This is what you want. This was the challenge you put yourself through,
yeah.
and so I have a philosophy in life, and it's this: if you're not failing at some things, that you want to do, then you're not reaching high enough.
Hmm.
If everything you do you're successful at, and you're not reaching high enough. You got to reach so far that there are things that may even be beyond your capabilities. At least then you know that you have reached to as high as you possibly can in life. So that's kind of been my philosophy. Once I know that I've maybe tackled something that's a little bigger than what I can handle, although sometimes I'll come back and deal with it again, and then I'll overcome it. But I think that's part of our growth as humans and as Christians is be fearless, even when you have fear. A soldier in battle, even though he's brave and he will risk his life, particularly for his fellow soldiers, the person in the foxhole with him, he's still full of fear. The fear is not gone. It's just that he's tackled that fear and knows that the only way out of that situation is to be fearless, even when you have fear. So I would just say to you, you're doing a great job in your public speaking and all the things you're doing because you know you're led to do that. And that's something that is important in your life, in your testimony, and in your influence on others. And so the more you tackle that fear by moving forward and doing more things in that space, the less anxiety and the less fear you will have over time, and the more effective you'll be.
Well, thank you. And I have started to see that. I have definitely started to see that. I remember back when I was just beginning to do some public speaking when I was working and living in DC. I had a boss and I just asked him, I was like, what do you do? Like, you get up in front of these people all the time and you just talk to large crowds. How do you do it? And he's like, all you need to do is breathe. Just breathe. Make sure the oxygen gets to your brain and you're going to be okay.
Right.
And I think that's exactly right because if you hold your breath, that's your blank space. That's where the blank space I think comes
Sure.
in.
Well, my experience has been that as long as you show humility, that you don't take yourself too seriously,
Yeah.
that when you make a mistake, everybody's on with you. They're going, well, I know you misspoke. I know you had trouble with that. I know you used the wrong grammar with that. But look, we're with you on this, and
Yeah.
we know that nobody's perfect. So I just tell people don't take yourself too seriously. Just accept the fact that you're not perfect, and everybody else will be on board with you, and they'll even help you. If
Yeah.
you need help in some way.
It's true. Now, going back to this idea of having your identity in Christ, how do you think it shaped the way that you raised your family, led your family, brought up your kids?
Well, my wife and I, and we've been married 48 years, as you know, and we both came from homes that were a struggle, that there was strife and problems. Neither one of our parents divorced, but there, we came from homes that were not always happy, and that was one thing that really drew us to each other even after you get over the love chemical phase and all those kind of things that happen in those relationships. And that is that we made a commitment that we would have a happy home,
Hmm.
that any kind of disagreements we have, we would deal with it in an adult Christian way, and that we would raise our children as Christians, and that we will help them uh, grow in a healthy way, a healthy mental way, and that they would for them to be successful in life. Now, there's a couple of places where that's important. I'm going to branch off into one that probably you're not expecting, but I think is so important today, and that is that while I didn't have alcoholism in my immediate family, in my extended family, uncles and aunts and people like that, I saw a lot of alcoholism, and today it's mostly drug addiction. You don't really see pure alcoholics anymore. It's mostly alcohol, pot, and other drugs. And I've seen so many lives destroyed on that. And I began to read and study and pray about it. And I came upon an article that actually a study that said this, that the human brain does not mature until age 26. My wife says perhaps my brain didn't mature until I was 45, but nonetheless, and my observation has been with that too. Even 20, 22-year olds sometimes do some really dumb sophomorish things, men and women, mainly men. But it's true, the frontal cortex does not fully mature until you're almost 30 years old. And that what you do uh, as a teenager or even as a preteen can impact your life and send you in different directions. And so they did some demographic studies, and what they found was that the younger a person is in life that experiment with alcohol, tobacco, drugs of any sort, the more likely they would end up with an addiction, a lifelong addiction. And the other surprising thing is that most people who do become drug addicts or alcoholics, which ruin their lives, they do so. They're people who may experiment as early as 9, 10, or 11 years old. I mean,
Wow.
really early in
Yeah.
life. So what they found is that the later in life people experimented or say began to drink alcohol or doing these things, the later in life they did these things, the less likely they were either going to be really social drinker or just not even drink or use drugs at all, or tobacco even, because tobacco we know is a very addicting substance as well. So anyway, we decided to apply that to our children, and we made a commitment that we would not um, certainly consume alcohol in front of them. We did not keep it in our home. We certainly didn't never use drugs. We taught them about the dangers of drugs and alcohol and tobacco. We monitored them. That's when the internet began to come on. We monitored their use of the internet. And we were very strict in these things, but not overly, just simply, teaching them the right way to go and protecting them when they would go to parties and things like that. We'd make sure we knew where they were going, what they were doing. And, and I'm proud to say that they're all now well, I have one in his late 30s and the rest well into their 40s. They've never had a problem with drugs, alcohol, or tobacco. They're strong mentally, and they're very successful in life. Not a single one of them, despite some in my family who ended up maybe genetics was a factor. Who knows? But this didn't happen. And I'll just tell you one anecdote about this
Yeah.
that really expresses this. My youngest son, when he turned 16, like a lot of parents do, I bought him a pickup truck, a brand new pickup truck, and he, of course, he had a curfew and all that. So one night he's out and he's late for his curfew, and I call and can't really get in touch with him. And eventually, he does call, and talking to him, I'm saying to myself, if I didn't know better, I would say he's been drinking because his speech was slurred. Well, anyway, I told him to come home, and he didn't. And so I finally went out to find him because it's a small town, Minden, and I didn't find him. But when I was returning home, he actually pulled out in front of me, not even knowing I was behind him, and I saw him weaving back and forth on the street. Anyway, I confronted him, told him I took his truck away for 3 months, told him he was not going to have a social life for 3 months. But then when we returned his privileges, I said, every night you come in, you never miss your curfew. You're going to kiss your mom and dad, so we're going to smell your breath, and you're going to have to blow through a breathalyzer, and it better have 2 goose eggs, or your social life ends right there. And you know what? We never had another problem from him after that. And so I think we were committed and still are committed to making sure that they have successful lives because we want them to be happy. But we made sure they were in church every Sunday. The statistics are very clear, particularly when it comes if the father's in the church, not necessarily the mother, but the father brings the kids to church, there's like a 90% chance that they will stay with the Lord and stay churched for the rest of their lives. So we were committed to that.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. And, you know, I think your lifestyle, could you talk a little bit about what your life looked like when you were raising your kids? Because you were a doctor, you were building businesses. How did your day-to-day life look? Were you spending 8 hours in a clinic 6 days a week?
Well, yes, I had a typical work day, and then I had to go to the hospital sometimes for emergencies, uh, and in the early years, I did some moonlighting again to supplement my income, trying to build my practice and make sure that it was economically viable. But you know what? I never missed. I don't remember missing any basketball game, any baseball game, any football game. Those were the highest priorities. Now, I didn't have a lot of life outside of my family and my practice. I didn't play golf. I didn't hunt and fish much unless it was with my kids. My time was solely committed to my medical practice and my businesses. But even more so, the highest priority was always my family, devotion to my family, and especially any activities, whether it's a recital, a dance recital, a pageant, because we have two boys and two girls. So whether it was games or whether it was pageants or dance recitals or whatever, that was always the highest priority, except for healthcare emergencies as a physician. Everything else, if I had to take time off from my clinic or my practice, I did it because you can never redo that. Once
Yeah.
you've missed that opportunity to be in your child's life, you can never regain that.
Yeah. Well, speaking of emergency medical situations, I've heard you talk about delivering babies in Guam during your
Mhm.
time there during hurricanes. Do you have? I was hoping I could get a story out of you, something that's just. w- you have a favorite story of a harrowing event during a hurricane or something?
Well, I did. Here's kind of what happened with that. The way it worked was any lady who was pregnant from 35 weeks on, uh, when there was a hurricane on its way, they actually had to come to the hospital and stay there because we didn't want a obstetrical emergency
Yeah.
during a hurricane that could not be handled from their home. So you'd have like 30 or 40 women, and these were all military dependents. They were not Guamanians. They had their own hospital system. And so if you were on call anytime during that period, 72 hours, uh, you know, well, I would say 72 hours, including before and after when the hurricane's supposed to hit,
Yeah.
then you had to come stay as well. And so the first time I did this, um, I started, around 10, 11 o'clock at night when I was exhausted and ready to go to bed there in my call room in the hospital. I would get a ring and they would say, well, Mrs. Smith is having really bad back pain tonight. She would like for you to come see her. Well, I realized that when that happened, these pregnant ladies, and we know how pregnant ladies have all sorts of aches and pains and they can't sleep. I realized I wasn't going to sleep.
Yep.
And I didn't see how it was going to last 72 hours because I also had to be there to deliver their babies when that happened.
Yeah.
And then I also had my regular duties during the day. So anyway, I was talking with someone who'd been there longer, more senior, and he said, "Look, it's very simple." He said, "What you do is you line all the ladies up at 10 o'clock at night, and you put a sleeping pill on their tongue." And have them swallow it. And he says, you will sleep very restfully for the rest of the night.
Oh, wow.
And so anyway, I thought that was funny, but I think that the funniest thing or the most interesting thing that happened obstetrically And fortunately, I never had a serious. I mean, obstetrics is a very scary practice of medicine. Things can go from very happy to very sad very quickly
Yeah.
because things happen. Uh, I was on call for the obstetrical side of my practice, and I lived about 3 miles away from the hospital. And the streets on Guam are paved. They use this coral stuff and also seashells. And when it rains, it gets slippery.
Okay.
And I got a call from the emergency room, and they said there's a lady bleeding vaginally, and they needed me to come immediately. Well, I jumped in my car, and I'm going, as fast as I can, and I forget that the streets were wet and slippery. And I come to a stop sign, and I had not slowed down. I slammed on the brakes, and I slid right through it and onto the other side. Fortunately, there was no cars coming, so nothing serious
Goodness.
happened.
Yeah.
But I was, I was on a hair trigger because I was worried. It all turned out fine. I got there in plenty of time, and we got the problem taken care of. But these are the kind of things that doctors go through, and that's why we appreciate doctors, because they oftentimes have to just drop everything they're doing at that very moment to take care of somebody who's in serious healthcare crisis.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, when you look at your life and you see all the opportunities that the Lord's given you and all that he's done in you, right? Like the reshaping, like the clay on the potter's wheel
Mm.
and the chiseling that he's done over time. What do you see looking back as what's been the driving purpose, kind of the thread that runs through your life for why he made you and what he has for you here?
I think that the role that the Lord has had for me is to be uh, a leader of my family. That the responsibility to be sure that my family is protected and well taken care of falls on me. And that's the agreement that my wife and I have. She's always been the one to see to our children's needs, to be sure they're taken care of, to give them the emotional support. Not that that's not also a responsibility of mine, but mine, we're a classic, I guess, trad family, and that is that I've always been the producer, the one who provides for the family financially and otherwise, overlooks safety. Safety has always been very important to me, and I've taken that as my responsibility. And she, of course, is much more the homemaker and the caretaker, and someone who provides the emotional support much more than me. Where that connects to me now in the roles that I've been in is that I see the importance of a servant leadership role for myself. That is to be a leader for people, but also to be their servants. Um, that's basically the model that Jesus gave us.
Yeah.
Washing the feet of his disciples. Um, you know, they're at the Last Supper. That servant leadership where he says, "No, let me wash your feet. That's really my job, is to take care of you." And I think that's the way leaders should be in government, is that they should see as the utmost and paramount importance is the needs of the people they serve, not that they're great people or that they're statesmen. I think all of those things are fine, but they're secondary to is it really what you care about the people, or is it really your own personal interest and how you can use your position for the benefit of yourself and your friends and your family? And so I'm very committed to a servant leadership, and always have been and always will. That's a reason why that you've heard the fact that I'm going to do, once I'm elected to this office, as I did as a congressman, town halls. I love town halls. I
Yeah.
love answering questions. I love working through these problems with people. Many politicians don't want to answer those questions. Uh, the, and I guess that's what sets us apart.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely true. And the way that politicians are when they are faced with the public, I think is where the proof is in the pudding. I
Sure.
think it's one thing to be put in a position where you can get up and say all the great things you've done and not have to answer any tough questions. And it's a different thing to open it up and open yourself up for criticism, for questioning, and just to have the humility to be able
Sure.
to answer those questions and say, like, I don't know everything. I'm not perfect, but what I do want to do is be honest with
Sure.
you. And I do want to come at it from a position of having done the best I thought I could do with the information that was available to me at the
Yes.
time.
Yeah.
And I just think I really appreciate that about you. And there have been some contrasts that have been easy to see. That, obviously, Chris and I have followed this legislative session closely, and there's not that many people in the legislature. There's a handful, there's maybe two handfuls in the state legislature who are willing to answer the tough questions, or who are even willing to really listen to their constituents
Right.
when they have a different perspective. And that's the only way we're going to be able to move the state forward is
Yes.
if people who have different perspectives can have constructive conversations without it becoming an us versus them or a name
Mhm.
calling or devolving into something like that. So
Right.
I'm just really thankful that that your perspective is has always seemed to be taking the high ground. I know you've had to answer some lies. You've had to answer some things that have come against you, but I don't think that what I saw from the outset, at least from my limited perspective, is that you've tried to make your campaign a positive one about what you have to offer and why you what you want to do in the role rather than making it about anybody else, because truly
Sure.
it's not about anybody else.
Right.
Putting forth your background and your ideals, and that's what people should be voting on. So I just thank you, and thank you for having the courage to run, and thank you for sharing some time with me today. I one last question on your way out. I know you have something right here at the top of the hour, so I want
Mhm.
to get you out of here shortly.
Sure.
Um, but and I think you did allude to this earlier, but when you look back on your life, you said this role doesn't define you. Previous roles don't define you. Maybe if anything defines you, it might be husband or dad or
Yes.
believer. But what when you look back on this life, what do you hope to see? What will a successful and fulfilling life lived by John Fleming look like?
I think that the thing that I would want people, the memory that I would leave with people, that is that while I was here, that I did the best to serve my Lord, first of all, to serve my family, my loved ones, my friends, colleagues, and really the people of the United States. That I've done everything that I possibly can within my power and capabilities to serve them and make this world a better place. Certainly, the previous generations have done that. I think back upon my parents and grandparents, what they did to make it America a better place for me, and I took that baton and carried it, and I'm handing it off to other people eventually when my time is up, trying to do what's best. But that's what I would, again, this goes back to servant leadership,
Yeah.
is I want to do everything I can to reshape our nation, uh, to bring it as much back to the ideals of the founding fathers of this nation, who again took the Christian model. That's our country's. It really is a Christian nation.
Yeah.
Even our laws are based on the Ten Commandments. So there's no getting away from that. And to a large extent, I've worked to try to restore that as much as possible. and it's very difficult, as you know. So that's what I would want to be remembered as.
Well, beautiful. Well, thank you so much. I hope this was as refreshing for you as it was for me, getting some moments away from the political sphere and just being able to talk kind of heart to heart, face to face. So thank you so much for spending
Right.
some time with
Sure.
me this morning. And just very best wishes on Saturday. We'll be looking at
Great.
that very closely. So everybody remember to get out to vote.
Super. Thank you, Danielle, sorry.
Yeah.
And God bless you, my friend.
God bless you, John. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Well, I just really enjoyed that conversation, and I think it was important to bring out who John Fleming is because there's been so many attack ads. There's been so much rancor in this U.S. Senate race, and it does so much is at risk or at stake for our state. So I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. And just a quick announcement for tomorrow, back on the State of Freedom here at 10 a.m. Central, we will have Public Service Commission candidate John Young joining us to talk about his platform and to talk about what his agenda should he be elected to the PSCB. So I hope that you will all be able to join us for that. And thank you for joining me this morning. Again, it is just an honor and a privilege to be able to come to you. And I pray that you have a wonderful day ahead.
Cabo Fuego, it's just unbelievable. Whether it's the flame-grilled carne asada or a signature mango margarita, I had one of those too. They're serving up a literal feast of freedom at Cabo Fuego. It's just extraordinary. I love the owners, Andres and Jose. They run such a great restaurant. The service is extraordinary. The atmosphere is great. So if you're in Pineville and the Alexandria area or passing through, or if you live there, go to Cabo Fuego and tell them the State of Freedom sent you. Blanco Brothers has been in business in Louisiana for about 30 years now. I have personal experience with this company, and I know others who have as well. If you have a business or a home and you've got roofing, gutter, sheet metal issues at all, one number you need to know, and that's Blanco Brothers Construction. He will treat you right financially, and he will take very good care of you with regard to the quality of the service that he provides. I cannot recommend Blanco Brothers Construction more highly enough. Memorize the number 225-226-4222. Blanco Brothers Construction, the very best in the business.
Thanks for joining us today on the State of Freedom. Any follow-up? Thanks for joining me today on For the Love of Freedom. It is an honor and a true privilege to get to spend some time with you. If you're looking for other episodes of this show, you can find them on all of the State of Freedom platforms. And a reminder that this show is live on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Central. God bless.